to Sakshi TV Special Immigration Show. I'm your host Shivani Raj. For today's show, we have lawyer Srinivas Kaveti from Kaveti Law Firm. Please note that Sakshi TV now has 4 immigration shows every week. On Tuesdays with lawyer Srinivas Kaveti, on Wednesdays with Prashanti Reddy, on Thursdays with Cham Parvatneni, and on Fridays with Banu Nindra. Please do not ask your questions. If you are an immigration attorney and would like to join our special shows, please email us at sakshieducation.com or call us at 866-725-7441. Before we begin the show, please note that the information provided on this show is not a legal advice and for general information purposes only. Sakshi TV or its agents will not be responsible for the use of information. But if you need any consultation, you can definitely contact the attorney directly. Mr. Kaveti needs no introduction, but if you need consultation, you can definitely log on to their firm, which is Kaveti Law Firm. It is headquartered in New York City and has connections all over the world. He is a top-notch priority for their clients for his top-notch way of dealing with different laws in USA and around the world. So without any further delay, let's welcome Kaveti Garu onto our show. Mr. Kaveti, welcome back.
Thank you, Shivani.
Yes. Kaveti Garu, I hope you're doing well. And before we get on to the topic, can you please introduce a little bit and talk about your law firm and just like an introduction about your law firm?
Well, we started our journey back in India, come up to New York, and we have a presence in UK as well now. We advise, and our firm advises clients all over the US and other countries. We get clients for domestic violence cases from different parts of America. We have clients in India, different parts of India, in terms of writ petitions in high courts and Supreme Courts. And we also get clients from UK and Europe as well, in terms of immigration. Poland, Israel, and different parts of Europe. We also work with immigration lawyers. So anybody comes to us, even in litigation as well, corporate litigation or criminal law, and we advise clients all over the world. We have network of lawyers, I would say. Because of my legal education in New York and Australia, New York, London, and India. So, and I basically, I advise clients on different areas of law. But if they're complex and if we have to retain some lawyers in different parts of America, we work with other lawyers, like family lawyers in California or Texas or New Jersey or, Connecticut, anywhere. We have clients all over the world. Sometimes we also get calls for, traffic violations and domestic law. And we also get clients, those who want to register a company in America, different parts of American cities. So we also work with different lawyers. We incorporate their companies. And sometimes they want to do a trademark registration, patent registration. We help them. And we have a lot of clients in terms of cross-country jurisdictional issues. People who are having properties in India, they're facing problems with the tenants, or if they want to buy a property, some due diligence in India, and even conveyancing. We do conveyancing. And matter of fact, we get clients from Delhi, Bombay, other cities. So the way it works is, it's kind of, tentacles all over the world, I would say. And we also have got clients from Australia. And lately we are getting clients from Australia and UK as well. Those who want to come and marry some US citizens, and some US citizens want to marry Australians and they want to bring them over here and things like that. It's all over the world, I would say.
Yes. So, Kaveti Garu, let's get on to today's topic. So today we thought we will talk a little bit about labor laws. So without any further delay, let's get on to the topic. So first of all, Mr. Kaveti, can you talk about what is first of all a labor law, and what are some different rules and regulations that the USCIS or the labor organization has in USA?
See, it's a very interesting area. You have taken up labor law, Shivani. One of the lawyers, our principal partner, is actually a judge in workers' comp, and we do get some clients for overtime wage claims, and sometimes women are working, they're not getting medical health leave because they're pregnant. And sometimes we even got clients those who've been discriminated. It's a violation of civil rights law. And some clients regard those who are domestic employees, workers, and they were treated like slaves. And if you're working more than 40 hours a week, the law says that you have to pay overtime. Basically the laws pertaining to the wages, the laws pertaining to occupational health hazards, and in terms of overtime payments, and in terms of holidays, what days they have to have holidays, in terms of Fair Labor Standards Act, and what are the children, what are the laws pertaining to the children, what should be their age in agricultural sector, non-agricultural sector. Sometimes we also get clients saying that these areas children are working. People with background of green card holders and citizens, the parents, they do ask us, what age the children can go to work and how many hours they can work in McDonald's or Burger King, in terms of their salaries, in terms of their conditions, work conditions, in terms of their if they get diseases related to occupation. It's called OSHA. Workers' compensation. If they get hurt at work, do they get any workers' compensation? Different areas. And one must understand that there's two types of Department of Labor in this country. One is a federal agency, and second is a state agency. And the questions like, what is the minimum wage, as per the federal government, and what is the minimum wage as per the state government, and in terms of what are the occupational hazards one has, and things like that. What sort of licenses they should have. All those things come under the labor law. It is not like India that we have a Factories Act or Industrial Dispute Act, because those are based on English law. And America runs on a different footing because it's an enterprise country. That some sectors, kids are working after school, and how many hours the kids can work during the school hours, how many hours they can work in the school holidays. And this also has a bearing on international students. If they're working in the colleges and schools, if they're working outside, all those things come under the labor laws.
Yes. So let's talk about Department of Labor, Mr. Kaveti. What does it actually do?
The federal agency, they actually, you must understand, because it's a very good topic you picked up. May 1st was the International Labor Day in the world, and today I guess it's our second or third. What's happening is, if you see the International Labor Organization, they have framed certain laws in international level by the United Nations. What exactly, these labor legislations are designed for? These are designed to protect the worker, basically, whether it is India or England or America. These are designed for workers' safety. What is the minimum wage one should get paid? And if they get paid less than the minimum wage, what is the remedy? And for example, if they're working for, how many hours they can work. And there are certain areas, certain hazardous industries, what is the minimum wage and how many hours they can work. What is the difference between a state and city? Sometimes certain cities and certain states have their own wage structure. And what will happen if they don't get paid? These guys can basically go and file a wage claim. This is called a wage claim. Our firm has handled certain wage claims as against the employers who are technology workers. They don't get paid in time, and these even agricultural sector, non-agricultural sector, and there is another law which is pertaining to which sectors can have a union, which sectors cannot have union. That's called union law, trade union law. It's very interesting. America is a very interesting setup. Not all industries you can have a union. The way, for example, if you're an executive or if you're a professional, if you're a specialized worker, if you see H-1B workers, can they make a union? The answer is no. So there are certain areas where you're not entitled to get an overtime, but there are certain workers you're entitled to get domestic workers like cleaners, people who are working in workshops, some blue-collar workers. They're entitled for overtime. And some people who are from a top-tier management, they're not entitled to get overtime. So all these things come under the labor laws in this country.
Mr. Kaveti, let's say that somebody's let's say someone is pregnant, and that someone mostly an immigrant, and they want to like take some time out, after they've given birth. So, what kind of rights do they have if they are working, and what are some wage rules and regulations that not just the person who is pregnant must know, but also the employees must know about?
The first and foremost thing, Shivani, if you see, the state has a requirement to display those posters in the employer's premises, and these are mandatory. Let's say if an employee is working, let's say, as you said, a woman is working in an organization. She cannot join yesterday and tomorrow she cannot ask for a maternity benefit leave. You have to be working for a company for at least 12 months. And there are certain industries are there, they have greater protection. And you can't, if you're worked less than 12 months, you're not entitled for it. But you can have you can work for a, pay, wage pay, you lose the wage or you lose the pay, you can take a time off by losing the pay. So it's not that because you started working and you can get, there's a minimum requirement, for getting maternity leave for the woman, and as far as the men also, if the wife is working and let's say if you work for 12 months and you're entitled for a 40 days leave for maternity benefits, and husbands also, some states, they also give 1 week to 10 days of paid leave for helping the wife. So
Yes.
that's the law, actually.
Yes. So, Mr. Kaveti, can we talk about how many hours can a youth work? When I mean by youth, I am talking about the students who come on F1 visa, and also, people who are young, some just come on the H1Bs, and they're not basically actually working with an H1B visa in a technology based company, but maybe like a small company. So, how many hours can they actually work?
Let us segregate this question. One is the kids, as you said, youth, the young kids, they were citizens and green card holders. Under 14, they cannot work in agricultural areas. It has to be a non-agricultural sector. If you cannot work below 14 in an agriculture setup, you have to work outside non-agriculture area. That too, there are certain restrictions during your school time. You can only work maybe 4 hours during the school hours, school time. And during off the school, you can work 20 hours when you are school holidays. But these are only applicable for kids who are citizens and green card holders. But this doesn't apply for H4 or H1 because the H1B workers, and then the question comes is, as you asked, how many hours they have to work, because there's no overtime. The law says 40 hours, but if the job requires you to work more hours as a technology employee, because your minimum wage is 80,000 to 100,000, and you don't come under that blue-collar workers category, you could work more than 40 hours. And most of the IT workers, they work more than 40 to 60 hours because you're in a high-ended professional, you're executive, you're a professional job. So there's no overtime for you. The overtime is only for, I guess, blue-collar workers, not for professionals and not for the top-tier management guys. So the guys who are working in technology, I mean, of course, doctors also, they work more than 40 hours a week. Those who are in residency program, those who work in pharmaceutical industry, those who work in accounting industry, those who work in engineering industries, factories, as a professionals, they work more hours because it's not 40 hours. I mean, it's not like a blue collar worker. that you get overtime paid. Most of these software professionals or CEOs, CFOs, CMOs, all these people, they work more than 40 hours, and that law doesn't apply to them. And the kids of these H-1B guys, H-4 guys, and wives and children, they don't have right to work in the country, so they cannot work in the country. So even though the kids who are going to school, if they want to make extra money, when their parents are working on an H-1B, they cannot work. They can do an internship, unpaid internship. You know, a lot of we also get students on summertime. These are H-1B guys, children, H-4 guys. They come and intern with us, but they're unpaid internships. They can do an internship. They can get paid, so they don't have right to work. That's the answer.
Yes. Mr. Kaveti, I was going through, the Google, and I found this one article, one specific article where, in USA, how the tipping system is very different. You either have to pay 15 to 25% of, the whole bill that you spend, and that is usually taken to the tipping. So, how does this tipping system work there, and also what is the minimum wage for the people who get or who get their tips on the daily basis?
Interesting question, Shivani. In hospitality business, let's say if you're working in New York or California, these cities and these states have a higher wage rate than the federal wage. The federal wage is 7 point change. That's a federal government says that's a minimum wage you have to get paid. And in cities like New York, in Manhattan, or in California, or Los Angeles, and all this hospitality industry, people also get tips. And those tips, if the stewards or waiters are taking, it's a taxable income. Because you're getting tips doesn't mean that you get paid less as per the wage rate. You still have to pay a wage, minimum wage, as per the federal government and as for the state and city. And if you're getting tips on the top of it, those tips are taxable. Because you're getting tips doesn't mean that. What happens, I come across this a lot of times, a lot of Indian restaurants, Desi restaurants, and a lot of ethnic restaurants, when employees, when waiters are working, they don't get salary, they don't get wage, but they only depend on tips. But that's actually unlawful. If any employee goes and complains to the Department of Labor, the employer could get in trouble, because that amounts to slavery. It's a very serious offense in America. But what happens, these guys who are working in these ethnic restaurants, especially Indian restaurants or Pakistani, Bangladeshi, or even Mexican or some of Spanish or any restaurants, African restaurants, what happens, these guys are all working for cash, which is unlawful again. And they work for only tips. So, tipping culture is part of America, and some of the European countries and many countries don't make it a mandatory, but cities like New York and California, they make it mandatory. In your bill itself, it comes that you have to pay 10%, 20% tips. And if you don't pay tips, you're looked down. And even the restaurant hotel owner charges you a tip, and that is taxable, and they collect it lawfully. But when they pay to the employees, to the waiters and the workers in the hotel industry or hospitality industry, they still have to pay salary and wages, and they have to give all the benefits. For example, if that industry requires giving health insurance or hazardous insurances, if you're working in a fireworks industry, you still have to give a hazard insurance and health insurance and occupational safety, occupational insurances. Let's say if you get sick because of that occupation, you still have to be covered by workers' comp. These are called OSHA laws. Those are all there. Protections are all there. But the tips are considered to be income, and the tax has to be paid. But merely because you're getting paid tips doesn't mean that you don't have to pay the wages. You still have to pay wages. That's the law.
Yes. Mr. Kaveti, labor discrimination is also a topic that a lot of people don't choose to talk about. But again, that actually prevails in the society. There is labor discrimination that happens, and especially labor discrimination against disabilities is also a very common issue that arises. So, let's say somebody is experiencing that from their employer. What can the person who is getting discriminated can do?
Very interesting question, Shivani. Our firm had a client, and because the boss was, I mean, this I'm not targeting any particular religion. The boss was a Muslim, and he was a Pakistani, and the subordinate, he was a security guy. He was a Hindu guy from Guyana. And what this guy was doing, this Pakistani boss, Muslim, he was giving more hours to a Muslim guy from Guyana than he was giving less hours to this Hindu guy. And our firm, the guy claimed, and he gave us a complaint. And when we filed a case as against this company and as against this employee, as against the supervisor, in discrimination board, our firm won the case, and we could get compensation for this guy who was our client. Along with this client, there were other employees came and said there was a pattern of discrimination because they were not Muslims, they were non-Muslims. Sometimes we even heard that if you're a Jewish employer, and again, I'm not particularly targeting any religion, but these Jewish employers who are supervisors, those are non-Jewish and or those are Hindus or non-Jewish, they were targeted. They were not given promotion. They were discriminated, and they were even fired because of their religion, and they were not given enough hours because of their religion. And when you see there's a pattern, but the burden is on the worker who's filing a complaint. And in the past, our firm has handled such cases, and our firm was successful in that. But the burden is on the employee. But when they subpoenaed, when the Department of Labor and Discrimination Board subpoenaed all the records of the employer, they could clearly get that, and the employer was penalized heavily. So it's a very serious thing in America, and there's also a civil rights claim. Voluntary servitude, discrimination. These are very serious allegations. These are federal allegations, Shivani, and even the state takes it very seriously. And of course, there's a federal relief and a state relief, and our firm has handled in the past. Yeah.
Yes. So, Mr. Kaveti, what is the Uniform Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act? Can you give an introduction about it?
To be honest with you, I mean, we don't specialize too much in labor law. I don't intend to answer that question because it's a very specialized question you've asked, and our firm don't handle such specific topics. So I will not be able to answer that question.
Yes. Let's get to another question, Mr. Kaveti. So let's say an employee suffers from a specific illness and the doctor writes a medical certification that the employee is sick and cannot come to the work. Who pays and for the sick leave, and what kind of rights do they have?
When you get illness, this is again related to occupational hazard you're talking about. It's called OSHA. I mean, there's a safety and occupational. It's called occupational health hazard. When somebody gets that, let's say somebody is working in a welding industry. Welding. You know what is welding, yeah? And somebody is working in iron industry or iron furnaces, and there are certain gases are emanated, and because of that, some clients they have blindness. They get blindness, or sometimes they get asthma. And because of the gases, they also have problem with the lungs and liver. What will happen? There is a special coverage for these such employees. There are certain measures the employees have to take, and the employee gets certain sicknesses because of that. If you see the 9/11, what happened is a lot of people in Manhattan after 9/11, people have got cancer. They got cancer, and a lot of people died because of those poisonous gases from that 9/11 because of the there were, metal substances, and because of the concrete, because of the gases, poisonous gases from 9/11, because of that accident from both the buildings, and because, there were, gas pipes on the building. So a lot of people in Manhattan, they died with cancer. So those families were being compensated. Even the police officers who were there in that time, those who were on duty, their families were being compensated, and they became disabled. And even the fire guys, fire, Department of firefighters, their families, and many of them, they became blind. Many of them, they had sickness in their lungs, and many of them got cancers, and their families have been compensated, and many of them became disabled even, and they still have a big fund of a 9/11 fund, and they're paying compensation from that. So, time and again, in many industries, there are hazardous and dangerous industries. Let's say somebody is manufacturing firearms, or, fireworks, let's say fireworks. And these are dangerous industries in the world, especially in America. The environmental laws and employee laws are very stringent. The labor laws are very stringent. So they make sure that employers take certain strict measures, like employers' liability insurances, workers' comp insurances, and hazardous insurances. And they pay very high premiums, these employers. And if they don't maintain those insurances, it's actually a felony. It's a crime by the employers. So it's a pretty strict framework in United States.
That's it for now, Mr. Kaveti. I think we did cover majority of the topics. We will definitely do it next week too. Thank you again for the viewers for tuning in. You're watching Sakshi TV with me, Shivani Raj.